It's great to see you. Thank you so much for coming in. As we're talking about here, and we just kind of listed out, the pace of change, really even just from last week, has been noteworthy at the very least. You at first last week said that it was too early to discuss and debate this Confederate flag and its location. Now this week you say that it's time for it to come down. With all of that in mind, when you were governor, this change did not happen. Do you regret that?
No, I think that politics is the art of the possible. And, if you look at what occurred just prior to my coming in as governor, there had been a 3-year fairly bloody debate, if you want to call it that, on take the flag down versus not. David Beasley had been governor, had asked to bring it down, and had ultimately lost his election in large measure because of the debate around the flag. 3 years followed. A compromise was finally reached in the state of South Carolina, wherein the flag came down off the State House dome and onto a place of memorial on the State House grounds, and concurrently an African-American monument was built commemorating the death of folks that had died in passage in the slave trade and in slavery itself. And so for a while, people were exhausted. I came in shortly after that, and the last thing that people wanted to deal with was yet another debate on the flag. What they wanted to deal with were economic issues that would impact both African and white citizens alike in our state. A long list of other things that they thought important, whether that's sentencing reform, which we were involved in, whether that was bringing in, for instance, African Americans, as we did. I was the first governor in the state of South Carolina to have an African American chief of staff, first governor to appoint an African American as head of the Budget Control Board, had the most African Americans as members of my cabinet. So we tried to do what we could do within the context of a state being exhausted after a 3-year debate. Now we've had an amazing series of events in Charleston. Tragedy of shooting, but incredible grace in their wake by the 9 family members that simply say, I forgive you, a community that's come together, a state that's come together, and we see the political byproduct from that.
No, look, I understand politics is the art of the possible, but the fact is, having an opinion has nothing to do with something's possible or not, and before last week, you had no stated opinion that the flag should come down, as far as I know. And now you do, and that's a very, very rapid change. I want to get your...
No, wait. I want to be clear about what I said.
Okay.
What I said was, we need to first bury the dead, and I stand by that. Clementa Pinckney was a friend of mine. I served with him for 8 years while I was governor and he was a state senator. And to go into hot-button issues, again, where people have strong emotions on both sides of the debate, I thought was premature prior to the burial of the 9 victims of that shooting last Wednesday night. That's what I said, and that's what I believe. Events have surpassed that and gone faster. I think in a perfect world, you would have these debates after these 9 have been buried.
One of the things that's interesting, and we see this wave really sweeping over so much of the South right now, Alabama, Mississippi, they're discussing it right now as well. But we're also seeing something else interesting. We're hearing that internet sales of Confederate memorabilia have just spiked, have skyrocketed in the last couple of days. How do you explain that?
Again, as I just said, emotions are strong on both sides. So in as much as some portion of the South Carolina population believes, or Alabama or Virginia, or go down the list of states, believes that the flag is a symbol of racism and bigotry and hate, there are other people who legitimately and just as earnestly believe that, wait a minute, this is a symbol of the fact that my grandfather, my great-grandfather, died in the war between the states. There are 20,000 casualties in the state of South Carolina alone. And so I think that what you got to be careful in this is that both sides hold strongly to what they believe, but have genuine respect for the validity of the other person's viewpoint. And I think it's important we not go too far in this debate. I mean, the fact is, this morning I went by the Washington Monument, I went by the Jefferson Memorial. Both of those founding fathers were slaves. And if we make the mistake of completely erasing our past, I don't think we can learn from it. I think a prerequisite to moving forward and to learning is to be able to look back upon one's past, both individually and collectively as a civilization, and say, what did I get right and what did I get wrong, so that I might do things just a little bit better going forward.
And Congressman, before we let you go, I want to get your take. As the debate is now going to be taking place in the state capitol, there were some state lawmakers who voted against having the debate over the flag. Bill Chumley, he's a Republican state representative, he voted against moving towards the debate. And when CNN, Drew Griffin asked him about his vote, he said this. Listen to this. Don't have that sound for you, but I'll read it to you. He says,
okay.
These people sat in there and they waited their turn to be shot. That's sad. When somebody in there with the means of self-defense could have stopped this, and we'd have had less funerals than we're having. I want to get your take on that.
He's wrong. That's a ridiculous statement. The fact is, if somebody walks into your newsroom right now or this chamber that I'm in right now and has a gun, I don't think any of us can predict how others will react. And to attempt to do so and call somebody cowardice because somebody's shooting at you and you don't run toward the gun, I think is a bizarre statement.
Well, Congressman, it's always great to have you on. Important perspective on all of this. We really appreciate your time.